All right, you can almost call this, talking about common sense part two, or, whatever the other video is called. You can pretty much call this part two, um, because after I got done making that video, I, started to, think, well, maybe I should, because in the other video, I started, kind of ranting quite a bit and didn't really didn't really go the way that I really had planned. So but in that video I shared about they say that the moon was created after the earth, and just by using common sense, and that's just one thing that I said. There's an, anyways. Um, just using common sense. I mean, we all know that we need light to survive. Um, whether that would be the light that we get from the sun, or the light that we get from the moon and stars. And yes, I get it. They say that microorgan, that there was one, that we came from one cell, which I'm going to talk about that here shortly in this video. So just hold on. But they say that we come from one cell, and so they'll say, well, that cell doesn't really. No, it pretty much still needs light, um, to pretty much survive. And in fact, so any living organism, just it's a common sense thing. We all need the sunlight to survive. We all need the moon, and stars, so we can see at night. So we all need. I mean, that's just a common sense thing. And then, so another thing that I said in that video was, and this all came from a reliable source. This all came from somebody that's a geologist that obviously believes in evolution, but it came from a geologist, so it came from a reliable source. And they said that the moon was created because two planets collided together. Well, wait a minute. Let's use common sense there. Common sense tells us that when one thing collides with another thing, it does not end well. And then, does a semi colliding with another semi, create? Does an explosion that collides with another explosion, is that going to create? The only thing that's going to create is destruction. So we know from there that, look, I said this in the other video and I'm going to say it again. Evolution is nothing but a fairy tale story. And that's all you have to do is put on that common sense cap, to know that evolution is a fairy tale story. It really is. Like, you cannot take two planets, collide them together, and then all of a sudden you have the moon. I'm sorry, that doesn't happen. If you take two planets together and collide them, both planets are going to be destroyed and nothing is going to be created from them. It's just common sense. And then, talking about the moon, well, the Bible actually says that the light was created before the earth. So, and think about why. Why was light created before? Well, God knew that the earth would need light, would not only need sunlight, but also need light from the moon and stars at night. That's just common sense. So right now we have, if you take the common sense cap and put it on, obviously you can see we've debunked two things that evolutionists have said just by putting on the common sense cap. And so going further, okay, they say that we come from one cell. Well, let's put on that common sense cap. Go back to school. Come on, go back to school. What did you learn in school? In school, we learned that a micro living organism, a cell, feeds off of other cells. It feeds off of other living microorganisms, like living things. Every living thing feeds off of something, needs something to feed off of. Take bacteria for existence. For example, bacteria feeds off of they're a certain and I forget what it is, but I researched it before because I was trying to figure out um, like manure and all of that, for plants, because plants, they need the um, they need manure. There's something in manure or man-made, whatever it's called, that gives plants nutrition that they need. But they feed. There's something that the manure or whatever feeds off of to create, whatever it is, and I can't think of it right now, but that creates whatever it is that the plants need to grow healthy. Because they don't just need water. Plants need water to survive, but to grow a healthy growth, to be healthy, they need a type of manure. And that manure needs needs X, Y, and Z to survive, to create more manure or whatever. So we know that each and every little tiny cell needs something to feed off of to survive. And so putting on that common sense cap That's the third thing that is debunked. We know that this earth would not have survived. We know that that one cell that they say that we started out with would not have been able to survive. It wouldn't have been able to survive on its own. So we know that the earth, when it was created, it would have had to have, like, been created the same way that God created it. It would have had to been, he would have had to created light, and then he would have had to, like, he would have had to create all these things, and they would have, spontaneously. Well, like, because every living organism would need something to feed off of. So, it just, when you put that common sense cap on, it does not make sense that we started out in just one cell. And then, so that's debunked right there. So, another thing that we can debunk is how old dinosaurs are. Because they say dinosaurs existed hundreds of millions of years ago. Well, okay, let's look at that from a common sense perspective. What did we learn in school? Okay, everybody should know that a dead carcass, an animal carcass, does not last very long. I mean, I don't know exactly how long a dead animal carcass is going to last, but I don't need to know that to know that it doesn't last that long. And so, yes, fossils last longer, right? Fossils last longer. But, if a carcass from an animal doesn't even last, it doesn't even last a month. Like, I don't think. Like, if it is gone like that, I mean, sure, fossils are going to last longer, right? But I mean, have anybody looked at these fossils? They're falling apart. They have to be gentle with, like, why can't they just dig these fossils out of the ground? It's because they're already decaying. They're all like, and so if these fossils are already decaying, don't you think that they would have been completely gone, no fossils at all, if dinosaurs existed 100 million or hundreds of millions of years? Like, put on that common sense cap, would you? I mean, come on. Like, seriously. It's common sense. Nothing, even a fossil itself, is not going to last hundreds of millions of years. I mean, like, you can't even get a dead animal carcass to last. I don't even think it would last a month, but I mean, if you can't even get it to survive a month, okay, sure, a fossil is a bone that is fossilized is going to last a little bit longer, but How long do you think a fossilized bone is going to last? And then what about skin tissue? They found skin tissue on dinosaurs. They found skin tissue on dinosaurs. Skin tissue does not. No, okay, yeah, maybe a skin tissue that's fossilized might last a little bit longer, but if you can't even, like, that's one of the first things that goes from a animal carcass. Like a dead animal that has its carcass just lying there. That's one of the first things that goes, and that doesn't even, probably within a couple weeks, gone, right? Like, and to think that just because the um, skin tissue from these dinosaurs, just because they're fossilized, they're going to last hundreds of uh, million years? No. Like, they're going to last maybe a little bit long, but even skin tissue is very, very, like, it's rare. Like, they never found skin tissue on a dinosaur. Like, that's something fairly recently discovered. So you know how many years they've been digging up dinosaur bones, and then um how many years it took for them to actually discover a um fossilized dinosaur bone that has skin. Like, how long have they been digging up dinosaurs? And this is the first time that they found a dinosaur that had skin tissue. That tells you how rare that is. But then let me go further, because see, another thing that would, you know, like in an instant just disappear is blood cells. Blood cells. They've also found blood cells on just and on every bone. On every bone, they have found living blood cells. Okay, let's put on your comment, like, should there be living blood cells on these dinosaur bones? I mean, they should be the first, one of the first thing, like, after the skin tissue is gone, the blood cells should be the one of the first thing, like maybe the second thing, second or third thing to go. And yet, um, they want to tell us that dinosaurs roamed this earth hundreds of millions of years ago. Come on. Like, use your comment. Like there wouldn't even be dinosaur bones if you just put on that common sense cap that I'm talking about. There's no way. There is absolutely no way that that would be true. And so that's the fourth thing that is completely debunked when we put on the common sense cap. So the fifth thing that we're going to talk about is the Big Bang. Okay, let's put on our common sense cap. And also, let's look to evidence. Not just common sense, but also evidence. Has anybody seen a explosion create anything? I sure have not. I have not seen a bang, a huge. So, for example, the atomic bomb that was dropped on Japan, there were two of them. It did nothing but destroy. It did not create. I mean, it created a explosion that then destroyed Japan. I mean, but did it create anything else but a explosion that destroyed? Like, no, it did not create anything else. So I have yet to see a explosion be, create something, and then I will go further to say, well, has when you make dinner, it does not make itself, does it? You have to put in the ingredients. You have to cook dinner yourself. And I'll go further. What about computers? What about AI? It was humans that created the computer. It was humans that created AI. Have we been able to create something out of nothing? No. Nobody has ever been able to create something out of nothing. The only one that I can think of is God. God, the great I am. He's the only one that I can think of that has the power to create something out of nothing. We don't have that ability. But see, even if we could, create something out of nothing, which is false, but let's just say, theoretically speaking, and please understand, theoretically speaking, if we could, it would still have to be created by word. Like the same way that God created this earth, He spoke it into existence. It would still have to take a intelligent being to create this world. Just go back to what I said about the micro living organisms needing to feed off of other micro living organisms. It would take a intelligent being to know that. It would take God the Almighty, the great I am, to have already known that a living cell would need, other things to live off of, and then it would need a intelligent being to even speak it into existence. So, and then one other thing. I was going to end it, but there's one other thing I want to talk about: wind. Okay, they also say that wind created the hills and bluffs and things like that. Well, okay, let's put on that common sense cap. Okay, has anybody seen wind carry um, dirt particles in the air and then deposit them? And then, you know, 100 years later, there's a hill or a small, you know, hump. Has anybody seen that? Like, no, nobody has seen evidence of that. Nobody alive has seen the wind pick up sand particles, uh, dirt particles, and then place them and deposit them. But what's funny is everybody knows this. Everybody knows how powerful water is. Water is very powerful. Water, we all know that water can wash out a bank within hours. Okay, if water can, you know, wash out a bank within hours, don't you think it would be powerful enough to, like, let's say there was a flood that covered the earth, that it would be able to move settlement and, you know, with waves be able to move settlement and deposit that settlement? I mean, just take a very small sample. I mean, taking a very small sample, we know because we see this from local floods all the time, washing out banks all the time. Local floods wash out banks all the time. And so if water is strong enough, the water from a local flood is strong enough to wipe out a bank within hours. What do you think a global flood is going to do? That's common sense. It's common sense. It's very simple, easy to understand. Water is very powerful. So, how hard is it to understand that there was a flood that laid down the deposits, the like those hills that are created, those were deposited by water. I mean, how does anybody not understand that? Like, that's common sense. Water is pretty powerful. It can rip through Earth like Earth was nothing. That's how, like, I don't know what era, and people still use water today to mine. But I don't know, back in the 30s or 40s, I don't know exactly when it was, or maybe before that, they used a hydro system to wash away earth down to bedrock. I, I, I mean, water. They were using water back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, whenever, to literally wash away the earth down to bedrock so they can get down to gold. And yet, these fairy tale evolutionists want you to believe that there is no such thing as a flood being able to deposit dirt and soil, and a hill being able to have been created by a flood. I mean, it's common sense. Water can literally rip through earth. We all know that. But for some reason, they like to play dumb. I remember having this conversation with somebody that believed in evolution. And I said, all you have to do is put dirt in a box, put a stick of hose down in it, turn the hose on, and eventually the water coming out from the hose is going to break the dirt up, and it's going to wash it away. And they're like, no. That's common sense. Everybody knows that. So really, it's just the person that I was having a conversation with months ago, and this was during months ago. Obviously, it was somebody that was a fairy tale evolutionist that was trying to play dumb. Really trying to play dumb. And because, to be honest, everybody could laugh at him and go, ha 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 ha. You think that putting dirt in a box and putting water and putting a hose down in it is not going to... I mean, you're an idiot. He's literally either somebody, playing dumb, or just an idiot. And if you can't tell that I'm getting sick and tired of evolution being the head of this world, I mean, because seriously, I'm laughing my head off at evolution. I'm seriously laughing, and I don't know why the world isn't laughing their head off at evolution. Because if anybody put on the common sense cap, we would be laughing at evolution, not believing it. We would know that evolution was a fairy tale story. That's simple as that. That's common sense. I mean, just take common sense. Take what we've learned in school and apply it to all of these so-called claims of how the world was created, and apply common sense, and you're gonna be like me. You're gonna be laughing your head off at these stupid fairy tale evolutionists.